Anyway, over to Kevin.
Hi guys. So if you don't know, I'm Sam. I'm their daughter.
Hi, Kevin.
Kevin, if you don't know. Basically, me and our good pal Rev Kev went on a missions trip to Peru.
Rev Kev and I.
You were told to ask smart questions. I wasn't told to have smart grammar. So I think it's okay. So quickly, I'm just going to explain sort of what Compassion is, because we went on our missions trip with Compassion International. You guys have probably all heard of it, I'm sure. But so basically, their goal is releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name, which I think is a pretty great goal. So I'm going to read, it's kind of part of their mission statement, this verse. So it's Psalm 82, 2-4. Defend the weak and the fearless, uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. Rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. So quickly, what is compassion? I'm not going to give a whole thing, because I'm sure you guys have probably heard about it. But there are 4 ways that work together to care for the needs of children. There's, first of all, child survival. Second, child sponsorship. Third, youth development. And fourth, compassion's complementary interventions. Complementary interventions. English. Got it. Okay.
Can you mention a little bit what that child one, the first one is, the child survival? How they're working with new moms?
Yeah.
Because that's a new thing.
So that's the newer one that they're doing. Basically, it's like instead of waiting until like there's a child who's born and then they come into the sponsorship program, it's like even when moms are like pregnant, they can go to some of the projects that are happening around. They go and get the support that they need, nurses, all that kind of stuff. And even after the baby is just born, like they help all throughout the birth of the child and then afterwards. And then once the child is born, they can get into like the sponsorship program and receive the support there. That's sort of
Yeah, exactly. Because it was really cool because you don't hear about that. You hear about the child sponsorship. That only starts at age 4, right? But the mortality rate in a lot of these countries is long before the age of 4. So they're really working with local churches to improve care for families right from the moment someone finds out they're pregnant.
The other one that kind of shocked me was the complementary interventions. That's something I never heard about until I went on this trip, which is basically just so they have like on their website different things where they're like raising money for these specific communities around the world. So say they needed like, I don't know, what's an example of what?
Like the water that we saw?
Yeah, that was really cool. So one of those was just like the water is full of parasites and it's practically poison. So that project asked for funds to come in so that they could have a filtration system. And that's just like a bunch of the different interventions there. There's like so many different things and it's just specific things that each community needs. So it doesn't have to do with the sponsorship, but it's putting money towards that specific thing. You can go on their website and see what you're passionate about. Anyway, that was very fascinating to me. So now I'm going to just give quick 3 fun facts about Peru. So Peru, where we went, the population is big number, 32,671,108. Said that right. As of 2019, they're primarily a Spanish-speaking country, so 82.9% of the population there speaks Spanish, and they're predominantly Roman Catholic. So that's where we went, Peru. Loved it, beautiful place. So now, what was our goal and objective in Peru / kind of what did we see? So basically, the type of mission trip that we went on is an exposure trip. So we didn't go to like build a house or teach or anything like that. We basically went to see, experience, learn, and understand the work that Compassion is doing in Peru so that we can bring the information back home to Canada and encourage fellow Canadians to get involved in this great work. So we saw, because you guys have probably seen so many videos. Like I go to all these different church conferences and there's always a Compassion video every time. And it's great, but you don't understand from a 3-minute video. You don't get it. So once you actually go, and then you can, we can really justify the fact that it's real, it's not a scam, it's like there's actually things going on happening that's really, really important. So we visited 5 different Compassion projects throughout Piura, Sao Paulo, and Lima. and all of which are sponsorship programs that provide usually 2 to 3 days a week where the kids spend their day or part of their days at the projects in the churches. The projects provide lessons on hygiene, mental health, physical health, safety from assault or trafficking, health and nutrition, but most importantly, the gospel. And so much more. There's so many things that schools don't cover that to us in Canada is just kind of common knowledge. Your parents have been teaching you since day one, but they don't have that all the time. So they have like lessons on that. But the big thing with compassion is the gospel. So sharing Jesus' name is crucial to compassion, and that's why they actually apply the projects from the local churches, so that it ensures that the children and the families understand it's not only compassion's work, but it's actually God's work. So that's why they're not like building different places and writing compassion center, which I expected. I didn't realize when we were going there we were going to walk into a bunch of just small local churches. So now I'm going to go through the day-to-day calendar. We were there for 5 days.
5 days.
5 days. So it was pretty jam-packed, but I'm going to go through like our calendar pretty much. So basically we left on Monday, the 18th of November, which was a full travel day. I know, so cute. You can really tell that I love photos. Really photogenic and love saying cheese in front of the camera. So we landed in Lima in the middle of the night, which was dreadful. Slept a couple hours and then hopped back on a plane the next morning. Landed in Piura in the afternoon Tuesday. So that afternoon we visited our first church. Let's see the first church. So this was, oh my goodness, it was insane. First of all, I was already really emotional because we were on the bus and then I saw a dead dog on the side of the road.
Oh, no.
I don't do well with that. I love dogs. So I was like, why is there a dead dog? So I'm like literally crying, okay? So I'm like not doing well.
Because dogs are like squirrels there.
Yes,
Yeah.
There's so many dogs. They just keep on having puppies, man. It's crazy.
It's like our squirrels. Dead squirrels everywhere, they have dead dogs everywhere.
Yeah, and it's like totally fine. You're used to it, right? So I'm like really emotional already, but then we of course have to hop off the bus to our first church, and I did not expect there to be so many kids there. So we get off the bus and there's basically, is there a picture of it? Yeah, right here. So there's just like so many kids, they all have like Canadian flags and stuff like that, and they're all singing songs, doing dances. Me being me, I'm sobbing. Absolutely sobbing. Not doing well, right? But it was so beautiful. And then once we got tours, so this is in one of the classrooms. And it's so cute. Look at her, just like they're mesmerized. And they're mesmerized because I'm white. I'm not kidding. Like, they were so shocked about it. They didn't understand why I was so white.
Tell about the Q&A in the classroom.
Yeah, there was one classroom Q&A where we were kind of they were asking us questions, we were asking them questions. And one kid actually asked, why are you so white? We kind of, someone made a joke about it. They were like, oh,
it's cold.
Because it's cold. Yeah. And then someone else was a little wiser and kind of said, God makes us all differently. He loves us all. So that was very nice of them to clarify. But yeah, so it's just really, really cool to see how excited they were to see us. So yeah, we got classroom tours. I think they're nice. Like it was a really good space. They were all very sweet. Where am I? So then we went to our first home visit, which was insane. Like I didn't know we were going to be doing. Actually, I knew, but I didn't realize sort of its full, whatever the word is. Anyway, I didn't really process the fact that we were actually going to go into someone's home and talk to the family and see how they live their lives. But so the first home visit that we did was so crazy to me, but it's really, really cool.
Well, you get to hear how the family is directly blessed by the compassion program, and you see how people live. Like some of these homes we went to, like it's literally built out of a pile of garbage. Yeah. And it's like it's literally a pile of garbage, and they live in. So yeah, it was a little eye-opening.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So next Wednesday we had an hour-long bus ride to St. Paulo to see 2 churches there. We saw a mother church and a daughter church. We learned a lot about church planting because of this, since, the mother church and the daughter church, but Dad's going to talk about that a little later, like the whole church planting stuff. so this was the place where we especially got to ask those questions. I'm pretty sure this is the one where that white question came up, which is so good. We also had, we talked about sports, and it was so funny. They love soccer so much, fun fact. And so do I, so we connected, it was cute. Then we got, I'm trying to see these pictures. I don't see, it was at this church. We had an opportunity to play like games, so they basically let us in their big courtyard that they have, which I'm pretty sure every program has their little courtyard too, right? So they have, it was basically just like cement, and it's like a room, and that's where they kick their balls around and have a good time and play. So we started playing Stella Alola. They did not understand. I'm like, isn't Stella Alola Spanish or something? Like, what are we talking about? Anyway, I don't know. So they did not get it, but it was really cool. It was fun. We also, so with some of the donations that we received, since we exceeded the amount that we needed for sure to actually be able to go on the trip, we used lots of that to buy. We got coloring books, a couple small books, like
School supplies, activity books.
I got a recorder. I saw a recorder at Dollarama. I was like, I don't care if this doesn't fit in our suitcase. We have to get it because that's so cute. I want to see them play the recorder, right? So we got some of those presents, and this was the church that we like basically just. So we made two good friends there. So their names were Michael and Raina. They basically grabbed these big bags and they just like held them up. They're like, "Who wants toys?" And they all come swarming. So they were very excited about that. So then we went back to the hotel, and we had a whole presentation about the church planting process there, which is so impressive. It's really crazy, but yeah. So he's gonna explain more about that later. So then Thursday morning we visited a church in Pura. This was so, what's the word? No. Yes, this is it. Okay, so we basically got to meet some, not kids anymore, young adults who graduated from the sponsorship program. So these are two of them. I really connected with her. We basically sat next to each other during lunch and completely ignored the presentation because we were having a really fun time pointing at pictures of things and just saying the words in Spanish and then the words in English. It was entertaining for me. It was fun trying to figure out what each other was saying. Yeah, so that was really nice. And then
what they're doing for a living now, like
yeah,
what they're studying.
So basically, they're in university or college or whatever. And this guy right here, he's studying to be a pilot. She's studying to be a teacher. There was another who's studying to be a psychologist. So that just kind of proves the fact that like these kids grew up from the sponsorship program and they're actually like, how many of us are going to study to be a pilot? Like, come on. It's definitely not me, I dropped science. So that was really, really, really cool. Being able to hear their stories and the fact that growing up in the compassion program really changed their lives. Like if they didn't do that, they wouldn't be moving into these next steps in their lives. So that was really crazy. Yeah. So we went through the basically like records for all of the kids at this church. They have like these big folders for every kid who's sponsored, which has their medical records, their schoolwork, and the letters that they've written and received. So it literally has everything. And might I just say, every folder that everyone kind of got their own folder and we all got to look through it. But when I would look over at everyone else's, like, I'm looking and I'm like, A+, A+. Like, these kids are doing so well. And it's crazy exciting to see. They're doing so good. And so yeah, you're just like going through it and looking at their wonderful marks that they're receiving. They're learning so much. And then there's also like the marks of just like stuff that they're learning about like God and stuff like that, and just like all of the stuff that they're learning. It's so crazy. That's what me and that young adult were looking through. So it's like there's basically letters where it's like you can explain what your favorite sport is in Spanish, and then it has like English words under. So we were like pointing at all that stuff and talking about that. So that was really cool and just really crazy to see how on the ball they are. Like I really didn't expect that every kid would be so known. Like they keep everything so organized, all in their own files. Like it's not, we got special permission to look at that, but it's not like just thrown around. It's taken so seriously, and it's really, really, really impressive. So after that, that night we flew back into Lima, and then went to sleep. So Friday we visited one last church in the poorest area that we visited. This was really hard to see because everywhere that we went was obviously really poor, but
this was a squatterville.
Yeah. So basically, there was like hills, and there were just homes built everywhere, piled on top of each other, and basically all of those homes are not supposed to be there. Technically, if ever the government just wanted to tear them down, they could, and then everyone would just go back and rebuild them. So that was really heartbreaking, but wow, was it beautiful. It was crazy to see like these big hills with these small houses all like piled on top of each other. It was insane.
Yeah, they actually named the buildings there based on the date they started squatting.
Yeah.
So the name of the church was July 13th. That was the name of the church. And that was the day the church started, on July the 13th. And like their permanent building, like they built the permanent building on the spot. And so to fit in with the rest of the community, they said, no, we're here with all of you. It was really crazy to see.
So the home visit that we did, we actually got to like walk up these huge hills through their little town there. And I did not expect this at all. It was so shocking. Basically, every home visit that we went to, there was like a kid who was like 6 to 10, right? And we were like saying hi, they're like showing us their art projects. But for this one, it was really special because when we got in the house, the son wasn't home yet. So the mother kind of told us, oh, he's almost here, so we're talking to the mom. And then when he shows up, I see like this kid like this tall, right? And I'm like, oh, who's that? The older brother. And then they're like, oh, so this is him, like he's in 12th grade, you know? And I'm like, oh, we're meeting like someone almost my age, right? So that was really, really cool for me. And he basically was just telling us like what his hopes were, what he wants to do. Was it?
Engineering.
Engineering, yeah. So his goal is to go to school for engineering, but he wasn't sure if he'll be able to afford it. But I sure hope he can, because he seemed very excited about it, and apparently he's doing really, really well in school. So that was really cool for me, because I just didn't expect that I'd go to a sponsor kid's house and see like this guy who's way taller than all of us. That was pretty funny. This was also the day that I met my little girl, which even though I don't sponsor her, I will always call her that. So this is Crystal. I'm not gonna cry.
What was amazing about this encounter with this little girl, like we were actually the last to get off the bus. So Sam and I were sitting in the back of the bus. And so we had like, 20, 30 people on our team trying to get out, and there's hundreds of kids and families. And everyone walked in, we all sat down, and they were doing their presentation, and then we were last. And this little girl saw Samantha, and I'm telling you, beeline to her, and leapt in the air and jumped in her arms. It was, and it was so funny. They kept telling us, put your phone away, be in the moment, don't live through your phone, experience it. And I'm sitting there going, phone, I want to take a picture of this. I actually listened to them and kept my phone away, but it was just, and the whole time we were there, that little girl was just clinging, and so we actually put in a request to, so Sam could start sponsoring her, that we're waiting for a response.
She broke my heart, man. That was not nice, but not fair. But basically, she's sort of like one of the biggest things that kind of like really hit me, because you're seeing so much there that like it's just so heartbreaking. But then there's always like that one moment where you're like, yeah, like this is bad. And yeah, so basically her siblings, she has 2 siblings in the sponsorship program. And so Compassion's goal, if you're reaching a family of like 5, sure you have like 5 sponsored kids, but that's not the goal. Because when you have like a child in the sponsorship program, the whole family receives the benefits, which is also so crazy to me. So they're basically
so they'd rather sponsor 5 families,
yeah,
instead of 5 kids in one family. That way 5 families are blessed, because all the kids receive the benefit
they get
of one kid.
The doctor's visits, like if they have like that clean water service, like they get like the free water. So I think it's really cool. So I understand if I can't sponsor her, but that's still my little girl. I don't care. I don't care. I have completely off notes. Let's see where
I do that all the time.
Yeah. church, yeah, no, you go back, yeah.
Okay.
So this church, actually, it was so impressive. It reminded me a lot of like our Plan to Protect sort of thing that we have. It was mind-blowing to see what they're doing. So their church has a firm program to educate children on sex trafficking and safety. They also had a fully functioning computer lab where the kids can do homework, research, or even just play games. So both of those two things were so cool. We had a tour and we walked upstairs and there's just like walls full of things talking about how to brush your teeth, how to take a shower, and then for all this sex trafficking thing, apparently that's a huge thing in their specific neighborhood and that they just realized was a huge problem. They had no clue. So then they started, they have like their mission statement pretty much for like that specific church, and they were just kind of explaining to us what they were teaching the kids for that, like how to say no if someone is saying, come on, like just come over, I could show you something, and how to say, like, don't talk to strangers, because they don't learn that, right? They don't know that.
And it was a church compassion program that the government and the police are working with the church.
Wow.
So it came from the church, and the police and the government are working with the church to put an end to sex trafficking in that region.
Wow. You can just tell how big the church is. The church is such a big part of the community there. Like, and that's, actually I'll talk about that after. But that's something that just blew my mind so much because, like for the water thing, that was insane. The water, like to get clean water is so expensive. No one gets the clean water, right? But basically the church does it. They give it for free to the sponsor families, and then they give it really, really, really cheap for anyone else in the community. Or they know every family that literally can't even give that little bit of money for it, and they give it for free because they know who the need is. They know.
That the church owns a water filtration plant. Like it's in a room, an eighth of the size of this room, but they produce hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a year. And they instead of giving water that brings death to the community, they're bringing living water to their community. And then the church, it's run in the church.
That was really, really cool. So then after we visited all the churches, all the compassion projects, we spent a little bit of time in the market, which was really nice. We did an hour to run all around and do our own thing for that hour.
You learned about bartering?
Oh my goodness, that was so fun. I wanna do that all the time. They're like this much money. I'm like, no, lower it. This is it. Anyway, that was very fun for me. Then we went out to dinner, man. It was so nice. Anyway, and then we had time to debrief as a team, which was really nice, and just kind of like talk about what we've learned. And then a very nice 8-hour overnight flight home. Slept all on the plane. Stayed up until 3 a.m. until I reached my plane. I was so sleep deprived, I cried. That was fun. I was so delirious. But anyway, so that was pretty much it. As you can see, that was a really jam-packed 5 days, but it was such a blessing. So now I'm just going to talk a bit. I have no notes for this part. I'm going to talk about how this trip impacted me personally. My mind is blown, to say it in the easiest way. Like, after seeing what I saw, I see all of our churches in such a different way, about like the fact that how important the community is, like how important the church is to the communities. That changed my view on the church. So when I think of like what we're doing in a church, it's like we're blessing each other as a church family. But I'm like what I've been thinking about is like how are we like reaching out and not only blessing each other through our spiritual walks, but how we're blessing the people who aren't in that spiritual walk with us. What do we as Canadians need? We may not need like that free clean water, but like what is it that we need? So that was really eye-opening for me. Another thing is just like seeing the kids is so crazy, and knowing how many kids aren't sponsored breaks my heart because they need it so bad, and it was just so overwhelming to see that. So I can say for me, like my heart completely changed from this trip. My view on poverty, oh my goodness. Like when I was going into this trip, I expected like, oh, you go to like one community that's really poor, and then you drive like 30 minutes, and then there's like oh, this is like the city part, like where everyone's like traveling. Like we drove from what was it? Am I doing this wrong? Cura to St. Paul, or was it Luna?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cura to St. Paul.
Yeah. So when we did that drive, it was like an hour, and I was like, okay, we're gonna drive and we're gonna see like a nice looking town. You just don't. Like you don't. You just keep seeing. I love it there, but you just keep seeing garbage, like actual garbage, and that's what they're living on.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just I didn't expect that at all. I don't know if any of you, if everyone is just way smarter than me and realizes that, but for what I'd assume is so many people don't realize that. Like you hear it, but when you see it, it's just so different, and you actually start to understand. I can't say I fully understand it because I don't. Because it's like, it's such a flipped world, but just being able to go on this trip made me realize what the importance is, and it got me excited to like sponsor a child of my own, to get other people to sponsor children, because it's so necessary, and it's so exciting. It's to see what is going on. It's such a blessing to see what is happening, because like it is working. Like their goal, releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name, is happening, and the kids are learning about Jesus, and then the kids are telling their parents, and then the parents are coming to church. It is working, and it's not fake. It's not for show. It's not like the money is going nowhere. It's going to somewhere so important, and so yeah, that's I guess how I was impacted from the trip. So quickly, I just want to say thank you to all of you. The missions board, you guys really hooked me up there financially, supported me through prayer. Everyone in the church, I know that so many of you gave me so much money, and I really, really, really appreciate it. And if you didn't donate, like your prayer, it helped me in more ways than you could ever imagine. I'm only 16. I'm scared of everyone. like it's scary, right? Like obviously, but your prayer gave me the confidence to, when a kid is coming up to me, hugging, just like wanting to hug me and talk to me. I wasn't just like, hi. I was like getting down and playing with them, and like even adults, I could talk to adults. I don't do that. I'm not good at that. So yeah, your prayer and your financial support is so appreciated. So thank you guys so much. I can't promise that I'll have the answer to every question, but I can try.
Okay,
so
this is not a stupid question. Are you really 16 and you did that?
Yeah, I'm 16.
God bless you.
Yeah.
It's what she wanted to do for her 16th birthday. She wanted to go on a trip. So that's why that happened.
Any other? Yeah.
Tell us about it. We talked about it a little bit about the letters that we write to sponsor kids. Like, do they see them? What do they think about them?
I meant to talk about that. That's a great question. Those letters mean so much more than you think. And if you're sponsoring a child and you're not writing letters to them, I'm not doing this to guilt trip you, but I am because they care because they care so much. When we went in to one of the churches, they were on their computers in the lab, which was mind blowing. They all had like these open computers that they could all just use for whatever they need to use it for. They were writing documents, and they were figuring out how to write it in English. They were writing "Welcome Godparents." So they don't call us sponsors. They don't. Sponsor isn't the word that they use. They call us their godparents because we're so important to us, and the relationship is the one thing that they really know about. They don't know about all the money that's going where, they don't know where it's going, they don't know what's happening. They know that they're being blessed, right? But the relationship is what they really know about, and just that letter, being written to them is so exciting for them. I talked to one kid, and she basically said, I haven't received a letter from my sponsor yet. I haven't met my sponsor yet, or my godparent. Yeah, that's what they say. I haven't met my godparent yet. I haven't received a letter, but I really hope to soon. And then the other girl with her bright eyes, she was so happy. She's like, I've actually met my godparents. They're so nice. We play games together, and it's like you're so close to them in their heart. So again, if you sponsor your kid, write them letters because it means the world to them. Yes, they read it, and it's really important to them. Anything else?
Cool. Well, I'll share a little bit, one of the things that we saw, just kind of from a church leadership perspective, on some of the work that Compassion is doing. So they started these new movements and these new projects where Compassion is working with local churches to see more and more churches planted across all of these areas, countries, towns, regions. And Compassion International, Compassion Canada have actually done such an amazing job of streamlining partners around the world on how they plant churches now. They've put together a strategy that they're actually going to plant more churches this year than most evangelical denominations combined. Okay, because the work is the work of the local church. It is not the work of Compassion. Everything that we saw was headed up and run by a local pastor, and there was a director of the Compassion program on staff, not with Compassion, but on staff with the church. Right? And so it's the local church that's doing this work, and it's Christians that are contributing to this work. And what they're doing with their church planting initiatives is for $80,000. Now just think for a moment in our Canadian context what we could do with $80,000 when it comes to planting a new church. We couldn't even pave a driveway. We couldn't even build a parking lot for $80,000. You know? What they can do for $80,000 is they can build a full church building, and it takes about 4 months to build it, because they don't have all the building code and have to be all weatherproofing and all that stuff. It's always warm, it's always sunny, it's always beautiful, there's no insulation. But they can build a fully functional church building that can support a sanctuary of 300 to 400 people, with a dozen classrooms, a fully functional kitchen, a full play area for the children, fully pay for the pastor, and fully support 200 families right away. So when they plant these churches right away, 200 families enter the sponsorship program, even if the kid isn't sponsored yet. So what they do is they start it, and then they work through kind of their networks and their initiatives, and then that's when you go to youth events and Christian concerts, and they start sponsoring. They put all these kids out on the table. Those kids are already in the program. Like they're just going out in faith that these kids are going to get sponsored, right? And so for $80,000, fully functional church, blessing 200 families in the community, paying for the staff, it's just mind blowing. Again, like you can't do that here, right? And so that's actually some of the work that we've started here in Ottawa. So I've been starting to meet with Compassion Canada and with other churches in the city. And so we're looking at how we could be better equipped and partner with Compassion to start a work in Guatemala. So that's when we had Compassion here last October. And so we were talking, and a whole bunch of you sponsored kids from Guatemala. Our hope is in the next 2 years that we're going to be a part of seeing a new church planted in Guatemala. And so that's kind of just started. Like there's not a lot of information about it yet, but that's the kind of work that we want to see happen. Because then once they start with that 200, every single church, the passion is to see more churches started. So we saw Mother Church, and in 5 years had planted 3 or 4 other churches. Again, blessing 200 families, fully supporting the staff, fully reaching out to their community. Like what they're able to accomplish with very little is mind-blowing, and it is a huge impact to their community. But again, they don't see Compassion. The community doesn't see Compassion, they see the church. The community doesn't see some person working in London, Ontario from Compassion Canada. They see a pastor and his family blessing the neighborhood. They see the elders, they see the leaders of the church just being the hands and feet of Jesus to their community. So it is mind-blowing what they are capable of doing. So I think the big, when Sam shared like her heartbreaking thing, I mean the kids were cute. I'm not as, I love kids, I really do, but it doesn't hit my heartstrings as much as it hit hers. But what was breaking my heart was, the purpose of the church. The purpose of the church in Canada is, we may not have that extreme poverty, but we've got poverty. But we have spiritual poverty. We have lost, hurting, broken people. We've got one of the highest suicide rates. among men. Like, there's a lot of brokenness in our country, and just seeing the church in action in the community is so eye-opening. And what's incredible, like, seeing the churches there in Peru partnering with the government. What's amazing about the conversations that Danielle and I have already started having here in the city is our governments are actually very open to working with us. They won't say that. They won't. They can't say it. But when you talk one-on-one, when we were talking one-on-one with city officials, when we were talking one-on-one, they want the church to step up and do more. Like, the city councilor here is waiting for us to do more. So there's huge prayer that needs to go into this, an opportunity. So for me, it was just such an eye-opening experience to see what the church could actually do and be the church. So it was just an amazing trip to see that. So yeah. Any other kind of questions about Peru?
Kevin?
The food was great too. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet it was. This might seem like a strange question, but I'm just curious. So when they plant these churches,
Yep.
are they planting them with a specific denomination, or it's basically Jesus Christ is the center?
So
Like,
they work with
like-
different evangelical denominations, and so the big church, most of the churches that we went to on this trip, what was the denomination again? I don't remember either, but they work through, different denominations, different churches that want to partner. And what was fascinating, like Sam shared at the beginning, like the country is predominantly Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
All the church, like every time we saw a Roman Catholic church, it had a big giant iron fence around it, and the doors were closed.
Oh.
And all the evangelical churches, doors wide open, hundreds of kids, water filtration plants, food programs,
Kids are
classes,
running in and out of the
kids
church. They
running
don't
all
care.
over the place, trash in the place.
They were popping balloons. I literally
The
got
deacon's team
I got a
nightmare,
nail
all
in
the kids,
my-
they're just trash in the place.
They were
But-
throwing nails at the balloons to like just play this
goodness,
game,
it was
and then the
psychotic.
nail landed in it, and then I didn't know because I don't speak Spanish. So then I jump up to hit the balloon,
no.
and then the nail falls on my face.
Big
So-
giant nail hits her right in the forehead.
Yeah. Yeah. But the kids are just they could just play. Like it's open. The doors
Yeah.
are open.
So it was very, very different. But yeah, so they do work very closely with the local church and with denominations there. Yeah. Any other questions?
You're talking about Peru. Is it the same thing going on with compassion in other countries?
All over the world. Yeah,
It's the same thing?
same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
They all do it differently, but I mean all of the different projects do it differently. Even just in Peru, they can kind of decide how it's all the same base, but they can decide like how many days a week they go and like the space that they have depending on all those different things.
And because it's run by the local church knows the needs of that local community.
Yeah.
So there's
So where the
little
money
differences.
goes depends.
We were supposed to go to Ecuador
Mm-hmm.
originally, but then at the very last minute they canceled it and they moved it because there was political unrest that was happening in Ecuador. There was kind of some riots that were happening and protests against the government.
You may have been at my first presentation before, where we did an arts night, and I had this whole presentation about Ecuador. So
They just deemed it wasn't safe for travelers, so they sent us to Peru instead.
yeah.
Are you going to learn Spanish?
I learned quite a bit of Spanish when I was there. I was able to hold small conversations. I don't remember most of it. I've forgotten already. But I would like to keep trying, especially if I go back to more countries where they speak Spanish.
Have you had, or will you have an opportunity to do a presentation like this at your school?
Not at my school, no. My leadership teacher asked me to maybe do one, and I said I'd be completely open to, and she didn't talk to me about it again. So, I don't know, but it's also exam season, so they're a little busy rather than asking for presentations. We'll see. I have been talking to, like, I post all this stuff on Instagram about it, so I know that all of my, like, school friends have seen all that, and they, I have had a lot of, like, my school friends ask me about it, and they're all very interested. And actually, a lot of my friends are like, I want to go on a missions trip, now, this and that. But they're not Christian, so there's, like, Meet-a-Wee, that does, like, missions trips, and a lot of, like, just kids who aren't Christian go on missions trips, too. Just not with the churches, not with Compassion, but, so, a lot, after me going, I know a lot of high school students who are, like, super, like, fascinated about it. And wanting to learn more. So it's cool. Yeah.
I just have a question. Like, Peru has a compassion home office. Like, in Guatemala, the home office has approximately 50 employees, but across the country, we have over 9,000 volunteers from the churches working with them. Is it similar in Peru?
We were at one church and we took a picture with like how many people was it? They were all wearing their t-shirts.
150 volunteers?
Yeah, it was just a bunch of volunteers. It was so volunteer based. And then there was like a couple people on staff.
Yeah.
There's the pastor and the director.
The compassion director was on staff.
Yeah.
They had the nurse who was coming in to teach about sexual, the sex trafficking avoidance. She was paid part-time. So they had a nurse that was paid part-time.
Yeah.
But again, paid by the church. They're not compassion staff. They're staff. Like I think the office in Peru, compassion staff is a handful. We had one lady who was on, oversaw the whole project for the whole country. It's a staff of like 3 or 4 for the country, but the church hires the staff. Any other questions?
I just had a little question. You saw some schools there, or were they inside the churches?
So it depends on the program. As I said, the different compassion projects all do it differently. Some of them have schooling there, and then some of them are just like the after school programs. We went to a couple where it was schools.
No, it was all church.
Oh, they were talking about math at one point. I remember, so that was cool. But yeah, we didn't see like a school, but it is classrooms where they're teaching them like outside of school curriculum information that they desperately need to know, which is it was really cool. And they were reading the Bible and they were talking about English too and like stuff like that. So they're still like.
I don't even remember seeing a school building. Anyway.
I did, yeah. But they were all like wearing like their school uniforms. They were playing soccer. Yeah. We just like drove by a few.
But it was all done through the church. All the classes, all the education, all the after school programs, all the computer stuff, 100% run by the church. Run by volunteers, blessing their neighborhood.
So you mentioned how much it costs to start a church. How does the pastor then get paid after the church has been planted?
Then I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But I mean, eventually churches start. People donate, and they collect offerings. But then they collect offerings around the world. Like Sam said, they have special projects. So if you go on Compassion's website, if maybe child sponsorship not your thing, well, you could donate money to a water filtration system. You could donate money to donate money to them, and then they use who their general offering, where that money
stuff
goes.
Like this community specifically needs like goats or something like that. Yeah. There's stuff like that too.
Yeah. But then and so a church, I think they had something like a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan to see churches become independent. So they help with covering some of the costs at the beginning. And again, their cost of living is like peanuts compared to us. Have a family, pastor family of 4, you need a decent living wage to live in Canada. There you live great on $2,000 a year.
So then if you're sponsoring a child, that money is actually going, I know it's 100% used for the project and for the child, but so that money is then, if they have like 1 or 2 people on staff, that's helping with those 1 or 2 people on staff and the cost of feeding and
so when you sponsor a child, that money goes to that church, so it goes. So that's why they say it's high. Compassion's kind of overhead is quite low. Like when you see some organizations and how much of your dollar goes to pay for administration, and we know some organizations are really high. Compassion has really streamlined it. So I think it's like 85%. I have to look at the books again. They're one of the best for it, but it goes there, right? Because again, remember, a lot of times these programs start, they've already let these kids in even before they've been sponsored.
That's something that I didn't understand at all until I went on this trip. So it's not, you see that kid's face, like when you're at an event and you see their little cards with their name, their age. so when you see that, you kind of assume like, oh no, like I need to save them, like I need to sponsor them, and then I give them $40, and then they can start picking up their life, you know, like they get in. But so you see that kid, you sponsor them, they're already in the program because Compassion just has faith in the fact that that child's picture is gonna get picked up. And then the $40 a month goes to the church, and then they can use the project to bless them with the food, the clean water, the medical stuff, the after school program, like Jesus' name, like there's the Sunday, everything has a Bible.
We kind of pictured it as gonna be like the commercials, right? Like when you go on, there's all these kids starving to death outside the fence and they're waiting to get in. You know, like when you see it's not like that. Like they're already in.
Yeah.
The church is already blessing the community.
But that doesn't mean that they can't. They can just not be sponsored.
Well, no, exactly.
Because it won't last if you don't
faith.
sponsor them.
Yeah.
They believe that if we take these kids in from how we've been doing it, it'll keep working and people will keep on sponsoring. Anything else?
What I like about Compassion is about the letters. The thing is, if you forget, they'll remind you of the birthday of the kid or the Christmas. So I like that very much from Compassion.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you kind of forget when it's his birthday, but you're being reminded. So at the same time, you know, you have to remember to write to.
They try to make the relationship really.
And they've gotten modern. You can actually send your letter by email now. Like you can send an email and then it gets written out and it gets sent to them electronically now. Like all the documents are scanned now. So it's not that you gotta wait 6 months for it to go on a boat or a plane to get there. Like the communication happens a lot faster.
Thank you so much, because now I understand what's about the sponsorship. I didn't understand anything. You send them money and this is it.
Yeah.
But now I understand what's going on.
I felt the same way. Yeah.
Very interesting, thank you.
Thank you.
When is the next trip? Hopefully soon. I'm trying to leave Canada right away, but
It was hard to get her to come home. I was like, can I stay? I don't have to finish high school. I'm like, no, you have to finish high school. Get on the plane.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that. That is wonderful. I just want to remind you that when Compassion was here, 18 of you families supported one of those children. So that's the minimum number that is now being sponsored through this church. And if any of you would like to do more, go for it. You know one. So this is great. We're going to now turn it over to Kevin and Danielle, and we're going to move geography.
Also, I just want to let everyone know, if you do end up speaking with them, they got some like great videos and other pictures of just everything that's going on there. It's cool stuff. I got to see it, being a part of the family. Awesome stuff that was going on. Dad probably has them on his phone.
Thousands.
Oh, I did not put that picture up there.
That's my favorite picture. My baby girl was still snuggling with me.
Broke my hand. Oh yeah, I forgot to look at the plane. There we go. We're going with
Thank you guys.
good job, Sam.
You want to take 30 seconds? You guys want to get some dessert? Take 30 seconds, grab some dessert, grab some coffee.
Right now, Cameron. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. The next slide is he's like,
I want to make sure it didn't fall in.
But it's okay. I didn't get talked to about it yet. So. Okay,
challenge. You do a good job with that.
Okay.
See you guys.
All right, so we'll get started here just so we can get you home. I talked a lot today.
All right, so our trip was to Lebanon, and it actually came before their trip to Peru. But the reason we flipped it is because Sam had to go to work, so we're talking about Lebanon now. So first of all, we just want to say a big thank you to the missions team and to the church, to Greenbelt, for completely covering the costs for us to be able to go on this trip. And as wife and mother, and of the trips that were taken this year, like I can't tell you how much that benefits our family, obviously the experiences that we've had, but also benefits us as a church. Because I think for Kevin, like that was his first time, and my first time ever going on a missions trip was when we went to Lebanon. His second trip was a month later and got to bring Samantha to Peru. And I think just like Samantha had shared in terms of impact, Kevin's going to share some of that impact as well. And so we just want to say thank you for supporting us to have that experience. We didn't grow up in the church. A lot of people grow up in the church and have their missions trip like Samantha did at 16, and like Cameron's getting ready to think about where he would like to go. A lot of young people go on trips. Well, we were with a young family when we came to know the Lord. So this is kind of our youth in missions.
Get ready for empty nest.
So yeah, do you want to flip to the next thing? So our trip to Lebanon actually had 3 parts to it. The mission had 3 parts. And so with that, oh sorry, I didn't let you have your part.
That's okay, keep going.
Okay, so with the 3 parts, we had medical teams that came, so doctors and nurses, Christian doctors and nurses from fellowship churches across Canada. We had nurses and doctors. There was also, other than the medical team, there was a Stronger Together conference. So church planters and leaders being trained up through the Arabic-speaking churches coming together in Lebanon to have that training that is so desperately needed. And as well, church planting as well. So we had a team of pastors that came from one particular church that was working on a plant that they were involved in. And so these are all, the people that came with us were all from fellowship churches across Canada, and actually mainly from...
Pretty much all Ontario.
Ontario, yeah. It was mainly from Feb Central. So with the medical team, there are actually 2 million illegal refugees in Lebanon with no access to medical assistance. And so with that, there's a huge need. People who, they've got young children, they've got, pregnant moms, they've got whatever that are needing, seniors, people that need medical care. And so it was really, really very cool for us to be able to partner with the people and with the doctors and nurses to be able to provide some of that care. So all of a sudden, well, first of all, many of you know Pastor Bashara. Pastor Bashara Karkafi and his wife Rula put together a team of doctors, nurses, and pastors, as I mentioned. And in 5 days, we visited 4 local churches, and we set up clinics. In the churches, exactly. And so school wasn't in session, so those churches typically are similarly to what you heard about the Compassion. There would be after-school programs or school programs. Similarly, in these churches as well, were school in the daytime, but school wasn't in session at that time, so those spaces were being used for the medical clinics at that time. So, fascinating enough, pastors became pharmacists. So, yeah, you might have a picture up here with, that's Bashara. Go to the next one, please. So here we've got a couple of nurses that were doing intake before they saw the doctor. Go to the next one. So yeah, so with the clinic, suddenly, here's our pharmacy. So we had one particular church that collected all sorts of medications in order to bring. Now, mainly these are over-the-counter medications, but that people don't have the funds for or access to. So there was all sorts of medications. This is one of the doctors that came with us from one of the Feb churches. And here you've got pharmacist Kevin Revkev behind the table, counting pills and putting it all kind of where it needs to be to make sure that it was a fast-paced machine when the clinics began. So basically people would come and line up and get registered and go through that intake process, and then, you know, they would see the doctor would make the prescription, that would go through to the pharmacists, and they would be, you know, doling out the